Okay, well, thank you, Erika, for being here. Erika and I met about a week ago, and the first thing that stood out to me is that she's very funny. So please laugh at her jokes throughout our talk.
That's a lot of pressure.
But yeah, very excited to talk about what she's been doing at EY. So why don't you get started and just tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced at EY in the beginning?
Yeah, sounds good. So the challenge that we face is a challenge that I think a lot of you face in this room, which is how do you create distinctive, incredible content in an organization like EY, which is over 250,000 people. You can't possibly audit and edit and help elevate every single piece of content. And what we know is that there are more than 140,000, I think, pieces of professional services content that's out there right now. And so how do you make that distinctive? And how do you deliver insights to the C-suite that are just like ruthlessly edited and actionable? And that's really where this started. So what we wanted to say is, how do we create some sort of a framework for our content that's kind of like user-led? Anybody, all of our partners are subject matter experts. They are our content creators. We just kind of help elevate and amplify that. And so how do we create some sort of a system to automate some of their drafts that they have, to give it some feedback and to rank it almost, and then to figure out from there how we can help make it better. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, and you've called yourself an AI curious enthusiast, used an analogy of a Roomba. Can you tell us about that and how you think this has actually been an advantage in approaching this project?
Yeah, I'm probably this is a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Like I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about AI that's gonna be up on this stage today. But the reality is I'm curious. I'm curious about everything. I ask a ton of questions. And so, what I started to do is we started to say, okay, how do we take this and how do we maybe build a pilot off of it? And then how do we go from there? And I liken it to a Roomba, right? So I have this Roomba, I call her Rosie, like the Jetsons, and it's really fun to watch it. I don't know if any of you have one, but you just kind of watch it go. It goes off to one corner, and then it hits a wall, and then it kind of goes the other way, and then it hits another wall, and then you kind of come back over here. And that's sort of been my AI journey. It's like, do you think we could do this? And if we could do that, maybe it'll work. Let's go and see. And then we hit a corner, and then we go, nope, it doesn't work. Okay, let's go over here. I think part of the challenge part of it was just building this tool. I think the harder challenge was actually getting it to be something that we could implement and scale within EY. And I think that's probably what we're going to talk a little bit about. So I think we have some
let's go
what
see
the tool
what
is.
you built.
Yeah, let's see what it is. Okay. So how it started small. We said, okay, we want to figure out a scoring mechanism to look at our content. And we did it in using kind of like industry standards. So we said, is your content differentiated? Is there validity? Is there clarity? Is there voice? Is there utility in it? And that's kind of just like a standard of content that Source Global and others use, and that's kind of what we do. So we developed a 25-point scale. Each of those 5 kind of areas got 5 points associated with it. And we said, okay, we have a piece of content, we have an idea, let's put it through a system and let's get the system to rank the content. And so it would rank it on a 1 to 25 scale. So that was the first start, is like getting it ranked. And then we said, if we could rank it, then can we get it to give us a little bit of a SWOT analysis on what it's doing well, on what it's not doing well, and areas for improvement? And you see some of that here. So you're looking at utility, you're looking at some of the questions that it asks, how it classifies the information. So that was another thing, right? In this sea of information, how many articles are we producing that are for a CEO versus a CFO versus a CTO? What are the themes that are associated with those? How do they code by industry, and what does that look like? And what that ultimately started to do is it gave us a little bit of insight into the white space, or the fact that we consistently go to a CTO with this message, but we could probably go to another buyer with the same message and hit them that way and come through that way and help differentiate and distinguish the content a little bit. And so that's what you're seeing here, is we started with this scoring, we started to organize it, and then we got bigger and we said, okay, well, if we get the score right, if we can say, hey, you submitted an article, it got a 16 out of 25, here are some suggestions to make it better or not, then what could we do to kind of, where are the articles that we have overlapping? Where is there opportunity for improvement? And so it kind of did this like little gap analysis for us. And then from there, we went into a draft builder. So we said, okay, what if I said, I want to write an article on AI in finance? And it immediately would spit back to us what articles already exist. And again, different points for differentiation. And this then became something that didn't just inform our content strategy, but it helped us prepare for meetings with executives. It helped us just kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's out there. And I know this is probably like making you guys sick. It is for me. So we'll just kind of flip the slide for a second while you go to the next question.
Yeah, so in terms of timing, barring internal reviews, which we will get to, how quickly were you able to go from idea to what we just saw?
Oh, Noah and the team were fantastic. I think it took 2 or 3 weeks to get to the scoring part of this. And then again, the Roomba thing, right? So we did the scoring, and then it was well, how do we organize it? And then it was well, how do we get a white space builder? And then how is it a draft reviewer? And then how do we go from there? So that whole process probably took 3, 4, maybe 5 months. I'm looking for Noah, somewhere around there. It was relatively quickly. It was just oh, great, it can do this. This is awesome. Proof of concept works. Let's go to the next phase. Proof of concept works. Let's go to the next phase. And then it got interesting.
Yeah, so you've said before, EY is a highly matrixed organization.
It is.
It can take quite a bit of time to get approvals. And can you talk us through how you actually got buy-in for the initiative and then got it through the appropriate approvals?
Yeah, so that's where Noah said we worked together for 1.5 years, and I said that all this was done in 5 months. That's where it kind of slowed down a little bit. So we started with, we have an idea, right? We want to code our content. We want to understand how we make it distinctive and differentiated, and it started to work really well. So the scoring began, and we're feeling good about it, and we've got the whole process in place on how we're going to code this and what it's going to look like, and we've got the data set, and we're teaching the language model. And then we get the first score, and everything was scored exactly the same. So we gave it 30 or 40 pieces of content, and the AI came back and said, this is all exactly the same. Even though the topics were different, they were hey, it's consulting speak, and it all sounds very similar. And so we then had to go a step further and say, okay, we've got to teach the model, not just at the high level, but how do we then continue to get the specificity that we need? So that was a little bit of a gut punch, I'll say. All of your content kind of is exactly the same. But no, so then we continued to score it. And then, we updated the criteria. It was going incredibly well. We were getting ready. We shipped it off, and I think we, launched the new criteria. And of course, with any AI, you have human, gate checks, right? And so we have a team that in the past had been doing a lot of the scoring. And so we sent the 30 articles over to them because we wanted to say, hey, does what the AI is getting us in terms of a score, where it's scoring us, is it the same as what you all would come back with? And it was a Friday afternoon, and I got an urgent ping, and then I got an email, and then I got a phone call. And it was from the woman who's in charge of the scoring. And it was she was not happy at all. And I was oh my goodness, this is bad. How bad is it? Tell me. And she said, it's really awful. The AI scores versus the human scores only came in within 1/10 of a point. They were 1/10 of a point off out of 1 to 25 scale, Erika. What are we going to do? So that was the first roadblock to say, okay, we've got to get the people to come along on the process with us, right? And so we had a lot of conversation about, what you do, you can do, but you can only do it for 30 or 40 articles. So really our top level content. And what if we could then use this to do that? And then you could kind of evolve to be the one that's helping to advise on how we make that content even stronger and better. What do you think about that? It's the classic, AI is not going to take your job. It's going to elevate it. We needed to get her and her team there. And then she got super excited. Her eyes got wide. We were going well. And she's okay, cool. We started to add some of that additional functionality. Everything was going great. We're kind of walking people through the process. So we're getting that groundswell for it. We are testing. We are ready to launch this thing. And that was, I think, the 5-month mark, right? We were let's do this. I'm so excited. And we're here woohoo, woohoo. And there's InfoSec going womp, 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 womp. Not happening at all. InfoSec's whole job is to find the problems. Their whole job is to look and say, what could possibly go wrong. And that was just, that was a really difficult series of conversations to have with our risk team, with our legal team. We are a 100-year-old plus organization. And we are at the forefront of AI in terms of the capabilities and solutions that we give to our clients. But actually, like the emperor in the shoes situation was totally happening in-house. So how do we get AI and legal around that from an internal framework? And so not all superheroes wear capes. Some of them wear all black. And we called Noah, right? Like I first start and ask ChatGPT and I'm like, why does admitting to failure make you a better leader? Like this is going to be terrible. And then we call our superhero, we call Noah in, and he helps and he, explains robots.txt and he explains all of these things that again, I'm an enthusiast, but I'm not a pro at this, that are over my head. And he helps the legal team, establish a set of guidelines and a framework for how this can work successfully. And I remember at one point the conversation, you said something, Noah, like, you want me to tell you that there is absolutely zero risk in using an AI tool. I can't do that. And it was a very come to Jesus moment, but we got there. And we eventually got the buy-in and then ultimately were able to scale this. And it's been an incredibly impactful tool for us, what started as this, measurement framework.
Yeah. You mentioned you always have an AI skeptic and, you had a gal who just was focusing on the 10th of the point. So explain a little more, how did you get her on board and, what was the general philosophy, just generally if you have AI skeptics in the business?
Yeah. For us, I think it's, you get buy-in and you build trust over creating a process and not in promises. And I think that for me was the big thing, right? Like what is the process that we can put in place and what are the stage gates where we can show that this is successful? And so really it became let's do this and test this with our marketing function. Let's see if they feel like it's a valuable tool. And it was literally getting the buy-in. Hey, we have this idea. Do you think it could work? Would this be valuable to you? And then we went to the authors who are creating the content, our partners, and we said, hey, do you think this would be cool? Because by the way, all of the partners at EY are like, we absolutely agree. We need provocative, distinctive insights. We need amazing, absolutely credible sources backed up. And then when it comes to their baby and they're like, and I wrote this, and you're like, well, your baby is ugly. Like, I don't know how else to say this. So we need to it's my job to make it better for you. And so, putting all of those stage gates in process, asking, what would you think? Would this be helpful? Then it was like, oh yeah, absolutely, right? Legal, same thing. So I think each time approaching it with that Roomba curiosity and saying, hey, we have an idea. Let's see how this would flow. What questions would we need to answer? What questions do you have and what do we need to answer? And I think that was a big kind of just the way that we did it was very grassroots.
Yep. Many AI projects just stop at time saved, but I think you all unlocked a lot more than that. What did you see as the big unlock with AI?
Yeah, we went from something that was an automation, right? Like how do you automate the scoring to ultimately something that was a whole new avenue in content creation for us in understanding, what EY had and where the white space was. And so from that standpoint, I didn't have any expectation. I just knew we wanted to automate the scoring and to try to get some sort of consistent qualitative metrics behind this. And then ultimately seeing the value that it could deliver in each step and how it organized the content, and how it made us think about our audiences and segment them differently, and how it made it realize who we aren't talking to that we need to be talking to, or how we position something that everyone was really engaging and interested in, and a position, another topic that maybe not so much, and how do we use that one that they were interested in to get them to think about the one that they weren't thinking about. And so that was where the real kind of value driver of the tool came in, and how it became, from this automation process to this true value add and growth driver for the firm.
Yeah, and I think you said too, nobody was fired in the process. The AI was not meant to replace anyone. It really up-leveled a lot of folks in the organization.
It sure did. And in fact, this woman, the woman that I was talking about earlier that was all up in arms about the 10th of a point, she actually got promoted. She is leading this whole content elevation team on a global scale now. And, the newsletters and the tips and the pointers that she's able to put out from all of this data that we've gotten has been incredibly valuable and has also been such a career boost for her too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So what's your closing message to anyone here who thinks their organization can't do it?
Start small. Bourbon helps a lot, like a lot. And buy-in also is really important. And then I'd say, just be willing to pivot. I mean, for those of you who know Friends, this is like my favorite meme of all time. Like, just be willing to pivot. Be willing to accept that it might not go the way that you expect it to go. And so then you ask another question, lead with curiosity. And again, start to get the buy-in that way, I think would be my number one piece of advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Erika.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.